Jen, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to wear a fancy ball gown and my tenacity boots. Just so you know. All right, so the first 3 times I almost died, I was very young. The first time was when I had cancer when I was 11, and to this day, the doctors say, "What? You're alive?" So that was cool. The second time, I was assaulted at knife point in college, and the third time, I'm not making this up, my ovary ruptured. It's like having a ruptured appendix, and none of that is what I'm talking about. But it does provide a little context for my desire to heal the world. It did not start with me screaming in the shower. In fact, it started very sweetly. Our 10-year anniversary, my husband took me to the House of India. We were thinking about whether or not to embark upon a second international adoption. This time, a special needs child with severe, life-threatening scoliosis. He had no elbow joint on one arm, and he had this curved little wrist-like finger on the other. He was 8 years old this time, not an infant. He was from Russia this time, not from China. And at the end of the meal, my husband turns to me with tears in his eyes, and he says, "Maybe adopting this wounded child will heal my wounded soul." All right, let's do it. So it is 2002. We are standing in a Russian courtroom, tearfully telling the judge how much we want to be this boy's parents. Russians love them a little courtroom drama, is what we were told. So I tell the judge that 8-year-old Vova will have a bedroom set that once belonged to my father's mother. My husband speaks some Russian words, and then he chokes up. The judge starts to cry. The courtroom is charged with love. It is thick with the sweetness of completing and enormous good. Fast forward 24 hours. My son has bonded with my husband hard, and he wants nothing to do with me. In fact, he thinks that I am the witch, Baba Yaga, the chicken-legged house witch. So when my... Yep. So when my... It was... Yeah. I went to all the fairy tale places. So when my husband leaves to get some alone time, plot twist, we have adopted Wild Child. This person erupts. He hurls himself against the bed and the floor and then hard against this thick window. I don't think that the window will break. I'm pretty sure, in fact, but still this is a disturbingly suicidal kind of action, and I'm not interested in allowing it to escalate. So I guide him to a set of Matryoshka nesting dolls, and it is as if I have given a starving person a plate of food. He throws himself into play as if he will die without it. The largest doll, the outer one, Vova promptly names that one Papa. The second largest is Mama. Vova is next. Harper, the baby sister waiting for him in St. Louis, is fourth. Harper is 23 now, and she's sitting right there. The treasure of my life. Thank you so much for coming, sweetie. So at some point the next day, I will notice that the Mama Matryoshka doll is missing, and I will... Thank you! You're getting this! Bunch of psychology degrees in here. So I will find it in the toe of Papa's shoe. Oh, really? Said I. You don't want Mama in the family. So I pull myself out of my husband's shoe, place me right back in the family of nesting dolls. Gloves on, boy. I'm not going anywhere. Meanwhile, back at the marriage ranch, I know. That night, we sit together. My husband and I were in the window seat that overlooks Red Square, and I am suddenly struck with the enormity of what we have done. the unchangeableness of it. At this very moment, my husband turns to me and he reveals to me, I'm trying not to laugh and cry at the same time. He reveals to me a creeping disgust for the clinginess of his new son. I look at him and I am feeling for that familiar, tender beam of love between us, but I touch a buzz of electric anger instead. You wanted this so much, he says, with a bitterness that I have never heard before. What? What about maybe this wounded child will save my wounded soul? I am utterly confused, and I'm angry, and I'm scared, and I am also utterly silent. I squash it all down. I call it tenacity, even though it was not. It was stubbornness and enabling, and it almost destroyed me. So, it's not over. Our son grew into an angry teen. My husband was in a constant rage. There was that very primal bout of me screaming in the shower that I started this with. Walking into our house was like being deprived of oxygen. I did not admit, even to myself, why I spent an entire summer convincing my husband to move into an apartment. I did not allow myself to know that I was terrified of actual physical violence in my home. My husband finally agreed to the move, and I went weak with relief. I thought I will not have to choose between my husband and my son. Only I was wrong. As soon as he moved out, my husband fell in love with another woman. Wait, no, it gets worse. She was my new best friend, and she was one who sort of helped take care of the kids. I know! So I burned with the phoenix fire of my old life. There was literally nothing left of the person that I had been. Mother, wife, professor. It was wiped away. I don't know how to describe it. It was a huge, unthinkably huge rebirthing. And I know that many of you here know what I'm talking about because I've heard your stories. In this rebirthing, where the person I had been disappeared, I cleaned up my teaching, I started a business, I took care of the kids, they both grew up, they went to college, they became adults, and I know what you want. I know what you want now because we're almost done, and so what you want is a happy ending, and I want it too. We all want a reality where my son and I have the good relationship that we worked so hard for. But the real reality, the one that I live, is that we are estranged. And he is fine. He is living with my parents. He is enjoying his friends and his church and his job. It is not what I prefer, but my preferences, as it turns out, are not my wisest guides. And so they do not get to rule my happiness and the goodness of my life. So, my friends, if you take one thing away from this talk, let it be this. Tenacity is not a gaslighting machine. So do not use it to ramp up and bulldoze through your sensitive aliveness. Tenacity is literally the fuel of love, and love is literally the fabric that holds this gorgeous universe together. And each one of us, precious, wounded, healing beings, we are inseparable from this. And I thank you for listening to me. I am Dr. Lynnea Brumbaugh, and my chapter is called, Is It Tenacity or Is It Terror?